All right, welcome back to Trapping Tuesdays. Today we're going to be talking about stretchers, wire versus wood. We do use both of these. We're going to talk about where we use them, why we use them, and then the benefits of both. Whenever I was a kid, we started out with wire. That's all that we used. That's pretty much what everyone used. Any wood stretchers that you get are either going to be made out of basswood, which those are the good ones. The good ones are made out of basswood, or the cheaper ones will be made out of some form of plywood. Whenever it comes to beaver boards, it doesn't really matter. Most of them are just made out of some form of plywood. We don't have one of those today, but I'll talk about those a little bit too. But we'll start off with the benefits of wire. The main benefit of wire is your animals are going to dry quicker. There's no barrier inside of it that the fur is up against, so it'll dry in probably, I wouldn't say, but it'd be close to half the time as on wood. But that's really one of the only benefits. Well, no, there is another benefit to wire. Another benefit to wire is you don't have to buy tacks and you don't have to buy a wedge board. So those are the main benefits to wire. The reason that we primarily use boards instead of wire now is because your fur is going to turn out prettier. You can do a lot more with it. With wire, you're really just stretching it as far as you can. You can't get it nearly as good looking with wire, especially whenever it comes to an animal like coons, where the length is king, you know. You really, wood is better. You can get a coon a lot bigger on wood than you can on wire. On other animals, it doesn't matter quite as much, to be completely honest. We only really do our coyotes on wire because you're not really looking for length on a coyote. If you've got a good sized coyote, it just kind of is what it is. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. There's nothing wrong with using one of these over the other. Like I just said, we use both.
If you got them, use them.
Yeah. And now one thing I will say about wood stretchers, there are two different styles of wood. There's solid state, which is just a board that's cut out to the specs. This one's obviously in a little bit of rough shape, but you get the idea. It's just as a board that was cut out by someone who knew the size that it had to be. Another thing that I will tell you, if you don't want to buy wood boards, because they are expensive, they cost a lot more than wire. If you don't want to buy them but you want to use them, you can go on to there's multiple websites that have them.
The size.
Yeah, I think Fur Harvesters actually has a size guide on like they make actual templates that you can cut them out and make them. But you do need some fairly decent carpentry tools to make these. And the main reason that they cost so much is they're basswood. You cannot make one of these out of oak.
No, because you got to be able to push your push pins in them and stuff.
Yeah, so it needs to be a softer kind of wood whenever you make these. And you always want to ask, if you're buying them off of someone, I would not pay a cent for one that's made out of plywood. I would not.
I'm pretty sure those are made out of pine. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but the main thing is it needs to be a soft wood. The super high quality ones, anyone who knows what they're doing that sells them is going to make them out of basswood. The other kind of wood stretcher are the adjustable ones. Now, the main advantage that these have is you don't need a wedge board. Your hide slips down onto them real easy. You can kind of do what you want. It has all of the benefits of wire and all the benefits of wood. You're not going to see a lot of these for smaller animals such as mink, muskrat, coon, skunk, possum.
Cats.
Yeah, mainly coyotes and cats, long-haired animals. I actually don't use any of these because I don't really care for them, but there's nothing wrong with them. I
like them.
Yeah, I know that Adam and Ben both like them. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. Whenever it comes to smaller animals like skunks or possums or mink or muskrat, you don't really gain or lose a lot with wire to wood. They're the exact same thing. In fact, all the muskrats and mink we've put up this year have been on wire. I have wood stretchers. I just don't really care for them that much. I can actually typically get mink bigger on a wire stretcher than I can wood.
And I think they're easier to hang.
They are. They're so much easier.
Put some hooks in the ceiling, reach up there and hang them on there, let them dry.
And they're easier to store too. So and that's another bonus. Like if you're like us and you have to keep tons of stretchers, wire is always going to be easier to store than wood. The main thing you've got to watch on wire that all of ours, if you've noticed, ours are all heavily used. But it is a good practice to oil your wire because if it gets rusty, it can rip your fur. Or on the beaver hoops especially, Whenever you get a brand new beaver hoop, you'll notice they're super easy to open and close. And whenever they get rusty, I promise you they're not. And that's important because after you hoop a beaver, you want to be able to stretch that sucker. And if they're rusty, you're not going to be able to get nearly as good of a stretch on a beaver as you can on a brand new wire.
Smooth, what you need.
Exactly. A lot of people do put beaver on plywood. We do not. We're actually considering doing it in the near future just because you can get a beaver a lot bigger on plywood than you can on hoops. We actually caught, on our last trapping trip, our last real beaver trapping trip we went on, we caught 3 beavers that were over 70 inches, and we could not get them stretched fully because wire stretchers, most wire stretchers that you get, if you're using hog rings, you're not going to get that beaver past 70. And you know, whenever you're catching big beavers, that's a problem. I mean, if you've got a beaver that can go 70 plus, you want that beaver to go 70 plus. So if you're a big time beaver trapper, I would use both. I prefer wire for smaller beavers or medium beavers, but if you've got a hoss of a beaver, I would probably get some wood stretchers. Beaver are the same way. They're going to dry a lot faster on wires than what they will on wood. But they both have pros and cons. It really just depends on what you like. If you care about your fur looking as pretty as possible in the total length, I would get wood. That's why we run it. If you're mainly trapping smaller animals and that doesn't matter and you want speed, I would get wire. Do you have any opinions on any of this stuff?
I just use what I got.
Yeah. And like we were saying, if you're a budget trapper, you're going to need wire. Wood boards are...
You can find these wire stretchers on the internet. Everybody's constantly selling them, like on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. So you don't even got to buy brand new ones.
No.
You know, most people that have wood stretchers aren't selling them. So if you want some cheap stretchers, you can get wire stretchers on Google or Facebook or anywhere for nothing. Anywhere. I mean, we just sold like 150 wire stretchers, and I sold them for like less than $1 a piece. Because used ones just aren't worth anything. But that's pretty much the breakdown on wire stretchers. I know it's a shorter video, but there's really not a lot to be said about them. It has a lot to do with personal preference. There's nothing wrong with either one of them. Like I said, we use both of them. If you have any questions or comments on which ones you think are better, why you think they're better, or just questions on why or how we do certain things, make sure you leave in the comments. If this video helped you at all, in any way, shape, or form, you can leave us a like. Subscribe if you would be so gracious. And once again, have a great day. Bye.